Hey everybody, it's Nell with Little Yellow House Crafts. Welcome to my 2017 year-end wrap-up video, year in review, plans for 2018, everything video. It's probably going to be, excuse me, excuse me. It's probably going to be a lengthy one, and I want to apologize if my eyes do this a lot. This is the first time I'm trying to film on my iPad rather than my iPhone, and that is in an effort to not tie up my phone for 10 hours while a video uploads. But the iPad video screen is much larger and much harder to avoid looking at rather than looking at the camera. So please bear with me. I'm going to do my very best to just look at the camera, but this is going to be a lengthy video. Quick life update. We had a wonderful Christmas. You can see my Christmas tree here is bare. We've taken off all the ornaments and the lights. We're already cleaning up Christmas, which always makes me feel kind of sad, but it's also sort of refreshing. There's something about cleaning up and putting away all of the decorations that makes the house feel very open and airy and clean and kind of jumpstarts my desire to do some spring cleaning. Plus I'm pregnant, so I'm nesting anyway, so there's just something sort of satisfying about cleaning up, but we still have a pretty green tree to look at. We had a wonderful Christmas. We just stayed here at home, which was nice. It was relaxing and it was fun to get to do Christmas morning just with our little family. We did go up to my in-laws' house for dinner on Christmas Day, and so we got to see the rest of the family there, but it was a wonderful, wonderful holiday, and we're enjoying the week off from school. My husband also doesn't have work this week, so we've been loving having Daddy home. And he is actually taking the boys out to play right now. We have had record cold here in central Missouri area for the last few days, and I think through a lot of the Midwest. It has been bitterly, bitterly cold. We did get a little snow on Christmas Eve, and then we got a little snow the day after Christmas, so I would call that a white Christmas. There was still snow on the ground on Christmas Day, and our boys got to go out and play in the snow. But it has been bitterly, bitterly cold. And too cold, really, to send the kids outside to play. I mean, that's how cold it's been, in the single digits and low teens. And my boys are just so little that they don't really understand the need to keep their gloves on or their hats on, and it's just too cold, and so they are going stir crazy. And so my husband is taking them to an indoor play area today, so I have a little bit of time to film in daylight. Look at how much better the lighting is than last time, and I am filming in a different spot. I think this is the best place to film when it is daylight. This is my stitching chair right here that you see. You can see my magnifying glass for my OttLite, and the natural light in this particular spot in the house is the best. So we get to film in broad daylight because my boys aren't home. Yay. But we're well. We did get the flu the week before Christmas, which was a bummer. I got it and my two sons got it. My husband was spared, thank goodness, because he had to take care of us all. We got the regular old influenza A that is going rampant through the country right now. Apparently the flu shot this year was not a good match, and a lot of people are getting sick with the flu. So stay healthy, wash your hands a lot. Even if you got the flu shot, take care of yourself because we definitely got it. But other than that, we are doing great. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling very, very pregnant. We are just a few days away from hitting the 3rd trimester mark. Woohoo! So we got about 3 months left before baby boy joins us. But feeling well. He's doing great. I had my my glucose tolerance test and everything's fine. So it's been a pretty uneventful pregnancy, which is what we like. Speaking of pregnancy, congratulations, Chelsea, on your new baby that's coming in July. That was the cutest announcement ever, and how appropriate to have your mom do a chalkboard announcement. It was adorable. And I have to say, this sounds cheesy. I think I kind of knew. There was a couple videos back where you had mentioned that you hadn't been feeling well, And so you hadn't done a lot of stitching and you had motion sickness wristbands on. And this little thought crept into my mind, because recently, having been through morning sickness myself, I thought, I wonder if she's morning sick. But I didn't want to say anything because you don't want to guess at that just in case. But I'm so pleased that you are expecting. That's really exciting. Congratulations. And anyway, all the good things. Let's talk about 2017. I have a paper here with all of my notes because I went back and I started 2017 with 14 works in progress, 14 WIPs. And that's total. That's all of the WIPs I had. I had, by my calculations, going back and looking at what I did this year, I had 26 finishes, which was up from last year. I think in 2016, it looks like, yes. In 2016, I had 22 finishes, mostly because of all of the Brooks Books Advent Animals that I did. That really bumped my number of finishes up. This year I had 26. Now, please keep in mind, in that number, I'm including small finishes, anything that has its own chart, even if I'm stitching it as part of a bigger piece. Does that make sense? So, for example, my Little House Needleworks Little Sheep Virtues, every single one of those has its own separate chart. I am stitching them all on one big piece, but because each of them has their own separate chart, I'm counting all the ones that I finished as their own separate finish. Does that make sense? Maybe you disagree with that, but that made sense in my head, and I wanted to give myself credit for finishing a lot of things, even if some of my big projects aren't done yet. So I calculated it as 26 finishes. I had 3 complete give-ups. I had 3 things that I just said, we're done, I'm never going to stitch these. One of those was the Rose Garden, which was from a magazine, Cross Stitch and Country Crafts magazine. I had started it for Stitch Mania 2016 and just didn't work on it again, and looked at it many times and I just didn't feel excited about it. I didn't want to stitch it. And so I pulled the stitches out of that piece of fabric, repurposed the fabric, and I still have the chart and I may stitch that someday, but that was a give up. The other one that was sort of a give up, sort of not, was the Jan Lynn Winter Sampler. I adopted that out to Stephanie at Lindy Stitches. So for me that was a give up, but it is not a UFO. It is still getting worked on, just not by myself. And then the last one that was a give up was my Country Cottage Needleworks Cottages of the Month project, which I talked about in my last video. I just wasn't happy with stitching them all on one giant piece of fabric, and so that project was scrapped. I still gave myself credit for the 2 finishes on it that I had, because I did complete January and February before I decided to give it up. So I gave myself credit for those finishes, but that project will be a restart. So it's not really a give up so much as it is a restart, and I will probably restart that again next year. So 3 sort of give up restarts, which takes my starting WIPs for 2018, as I calculate it, also to 14. I started this year with 14 WIPs, and it looks like I'm starting next year with 14 WIPs. And that I am totally okay with. I think I did want initially to reduce the number of works in progress that I had, but honestly, with 26 finishes, I'm really okay with having 14 works in progress. I started a lot of things this year, but I also finished a lot of the same things. So I'm happy with it. That's kind of my year in review. I have here in a pile next to me all of my finishes for 2017. So we are going to look at them and remember what I worked on this year. These are not necessarily in the order that I finished them. I tried to remember and get them roughly in the order that I finished them, but I don't know. The first one that I finished was a piece by Prairie Schooler, Stars and Stripes. And these are little mini ornaments. And I have decided, because I didn't leave very much border between each one, when I cut these apart to finish them as ornaments, I stitched this on 16 count lamb's wool Aida. And because it's Aida and will fray very nicely. I'm going to cut them apart and just pull threads out and kind of fray the edges and then glue them onto a flat ornament finish. I think that'll look really cute, and that way I don't have to kick myself for only leaving an inch and a half in between. I was really trying to fit them all on one piece of fabric, and I don't know why I did that. Aida is not expensive. It's really not. And it would not have been the end of the world to, I have plenty of this lambswool Aida, this 16 count lambswool Aida. I don't know why I was so determined, but live and learn. So these are done and they're adorable. There's George Washington, American flag that says Old Glory, Abraham Lincoln, a ship that says 1776, the year of our independence. And we've got the shield, we've got the eagle, we've got a whale, who's probably my favorite, and it says Sea to Shining Sea, and we have the Liberty Bell. There is another little tiny miniature one of these that was started on another piece of fabric that I didn't grab, and it's just a little flag. But I finished Prairie Schooler Stars and Stripes. Next one I finished was another Prairie Schooler, and this was the April chart. I finished this in April, and it says, April brings the primrose sweet, scatters daisies at our feet. And that's just adorable. And I have a goal to eventually finish all of these, and I will probably do them Priscilla style on some sort of display where I can switch them out month by month. I know she has done these monthly Prairie Schooler charts and displays them that way, and that seems to make a lot of sense to me. The next one I finished, well, my next finish, I don't know if it was the next one, is one that I'm extremely proud of, and this was my very first Elegant Lady, and in that classification I put Mirabilias, Nora Corbett's, Lavender and Lace, those sorts of elegant ladies, you know what I'm talking about. Mermaids, fancy ladies, pretty dresses, that whole genre. Joan Elliott's could probably fit in there. And I have never stitched one before, and I have probably will not stitch another one in the future. They're just not really my taste, but I really wanted to do this one, and it was also my first conversion. And this is my conversion of Lavender and Lace's The Bride, done in Sapphire Blues. And I named her Mika after Darling Bluebell here on FlossTube, who now has another namesake. Her best friend's daughter was born, and they named her Mika after our Mika, and I just think that's so sweet. And so this is also Mika, and the reason I named her Mika is that Mika loves all blues. Blue is her favorite color, and she stitches a lot with blues. She wears a lot of blues. Her house is decorated in blues. If you don't follow Darling Bluebell, she's one of our lovely Dutch stitchers, and so she's wonderful and adorable. But this is Mika, and this is Lavender and Lace's The Bride. I did the conversion myself. I'm incredibly proud of it. You can see some beads in there. She's beautiful. She was a labor of love, and I will probably frame her and display her in my home somewhere because she's too beautiful to just leave in a tub. But like I said, I don't know that I will rush out and stitch another Mirabilia. I think they're gorgeous, and I think they're fun to stitch. I didn't dislike stitching her, but they're just not really my taste, and so I probably will not do another one. But I have done one, and that was Mika, my Blue Bride. Next finish was a small one. It's Mill Hill, Ireland Santa. You guys know that I am slowly working my way through all of the Mill Hill Santas. I have done 12 or 13 of them. The plan is, and those are finished, 12 or 13 are finished, and the plan is to do all of the annual Mill Hill Santas. They release 3 every year. I've kind of taken a step back from these this year and last year while I've been working on my Advent animals. But when those Advent animals are done, and we're getting pretty close, I will go back to stitching these little Santas, and I just love them. This is Ireland Santa. You can see he doesn't have a hanger on him yet. I do need to put a hanger on him. I have finally decided how I'm going to display these every year at Christmas. And so I didn't get to put them up this year, but hopefully next year I will get to show you how I've chosen to display them because I have finally figured out how I'm going to do it. So these guys will be displayed every year at Christmas time. Whoop. And that is Ireland Santa. Next finish, we have 2 Brooks Books Advent Animals, Speak of the Devil. We have Hamilton Horse. I believe he's Hamilton. I always want to call him Harry the Horse. If you're a musical theater person, Harry the Horse is a character in the musical Guys and Dolls. He's one of the gangsters. Harry the Horse. And so I always want to call this Harry the Horse. And the fact that he's like grinning like a fool, I don't know. I think it's Hamilton Horse, but he's Harry the Horse to me. And he's won the ugliest sweater contest. So that's number 17. And then I finished number 18, which is Remy Rabbit. And he's in a stocking. And I've said this a million times, but someone always asks. I am stitching these 2/2 on 32 count Belfast linen in Blue Spruce by Zweigart. And I have individual pieces for all of them. I am doing my own border. Rather than a back-stitched border, the way it's charted, I changed it to be a cross-stitched border, so it's a little bit thicker, but everything else is as charted. I'm stitching them with the DMC as charted, and leaving off some of the little snowflakes, but that, anyway, doesn't matter. Next one, Prairie Schooler. This is Knock Knock. I showed this not too long ago because I finished it not too long ago. This is one Who's There that I finished last year, but this is the one I finished this year. I have 2 down, 2 to go on these Prairie Schooler Halloween kind of smaller charts, and so that's going great. I finished another Advent Animal, number 19, Larry Lion, which I showed not too long ago. Now we're getting into more recent finishes, so I'm not going to spend as much time talking about these. I finished Magic Potion. This is a chart by Sandra Cozzolino, I believe. It's from Imaginating, and it's adorable. Still haven't put those backstitch eyeballs on the animals yet. I've been too busy stitching other things. My beloved 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, or 'Twas the Night, it's just called 'Twas the Night by Sue Hillis. That I showed extensively. Look at how well the sparkle in the fabric shows up in the daylight. Oh, it's so beautiful. This is so funny. My parents came to town a couple weeks ago to see me perform in the opera, which has closed and went wonderfully well. So thank you all of you for your comments about the opera. They came into town to see it and to spend some time with us since we weren't going to them for Christmas this year. And I pulled this out and showed this to my mother. And my mom, who hasn't cross-stitched in probably 20 years, said, I want to stitch that. Can I have the pattern? I said, sure. I don't need it. I'm done with it. I'm never going to stitch it again. So my mom has taken the pattern back with her and is going to purchase herself some fabric and stitch this. She is the one who kind of jump-started me back into cross-stitching 10, 15 years ago now. But she hasn't stitched since then. I mean, she is not much of a stitcher. She did a little bit of stitching when she was younger, but she looked at this and thought, I want to stitch again. So my mom is going to stitch this, and I'm so incredibly proud of that. My Christmas present from my parents was a gift card to Hobby Lobby so that I could have this framed, which almost made me cry because framing is very expensive, and just kind of the time we are in our life in medical school and with young children and med school loans and things, there's just not a lot of money for unnecessary expenses. I get, a small budget that I get every year or every month to spend on my cross stitching, but it's not enough to frame anything. And so I've just been putting all my finishes in a bin with the plan to someday frame them. And I think my mom saw that project and thought that deserves to be framed. And so they gave me a gift card, a fairly significant amount on a gift card, so I could go to Hobby Lobby and have that framed. So thank you, Mom. I will stretch and lace it myself, but I will have them order the custom frame and the mats and the glass for me. I used to work in a frame shop, so I know how to lace my work, and I've seen far too many examples of the hack job that a lot of big box store framing places will do. Just be careful. They can cut your mats, they can order your custom frame and cut your glass and all of that, but make sure that you trust whoever's lacing your work to make sure that it's not a disaster. As Diane from Mon Dot Stitches can recently attest. Go watch her couple videos back. Anyway, I also finished Prairie Schooler November, which is beautiful. And now we are into, oh, that was a more recent finish. Sorry, last time I did a video, I hadn't finished this yet. Now we're into the most recent finishes, of which there are 4, believe it or not. I have been stitching like crazy. I did finish November, so I filled in all that grass and did that bottom border with the leaves, and now it is done. So Prairie Schooler is finished. And that is this chart, which I bought at 123 Stitch. It's a reprint, but it's perfectly fine. And I will save it because I love this additional chart that they have for November. I think that's really beautiful. So I will be holding on to this chart and stitching that someday in the future. Next new finish is another Brooks Books Advent Animals. I finished Odette Owl, who is my new favorite. My favorite before her was Gigi Giraffe, but Odette is just the cutest little thing you ever saw. Her little red bow, which is actually, it's a little bow of floss and then you tack it on. And look at her big blue eyes and her eyelashes, and she's just adorable. And then just some Christmas ornaments hanging from the tree. I also love her because her name is Odette, which it comes from, it's a French name, and it's most commonly associated with the ballet Swan Lake. So, big fan of that. I showed this on Instagram. I finished Holly and the Ivy by Ship's Manor. Sorry for the glare, it's in a page protector. This picture is terrible. Does not do it justice, they never do. Here is Holly and the Ivy. And I stitched this on 28 count. I believe this is Quaker cloth, which is a cotton linen blend. It has the slubs like linen, but it's got a body that feels a little more like a cotton fabric, a Monaco. The threads are a little plumper and thicker. It's really lovely fabric. I don't think they make it anymore, but this came in that Zweigart fabric haul I showed a couple years ago. And I just wanted to stitch them on white because I thought they were so vibrant and beautiful. And Christmassy. You can see, I don't know if you can see, all of these little holly berries are beads on this one. And then the ivy has a ton of blending filament, which you can kind of see it in the green here on his sleeves. There's a ton of blending filament in him. So they are very sparkly. Unfortunately, it's not showing up well in the video here, but they are beautiful. And I'll have to finish those somehow. Maybe as a little wall hanging and have that up at Christmas time. So I finished Holly and the Ivy. And then I was looking through, as I was getting ready to do this year in review, I was looking through all of my works in progress, all of my whips, and I thought to myself, okay, let's find the one that's closest to being done and try and finish that by the end of the year, just to see, you know, just to challenge myself. Because at this point, I was kind of done with Christmas stitching. I had finished 'Twas the Night, I had finished Holly and the Ivy, I'd worked on a bunch of Brooks Books Advent Animals, I'd worked on other Christmas projects, and I was kind of Christmased out. I didn't want to stitch on Christmas anymore. So I went to my whips and I dug through and found the one that was closest to being done, and that was my project of My Little Women by Brooks Books. I had 3 completely done. Jo, Beth, and Amy were all finished, and Meg was about 1/3 of the way done. And they don't take very long to stitch. I did them like this, without the names. I did them all in a row on one piece of fabric, and it took me 1.5 evenings to finish this. I don't know why. I had just been sitting on this project for so long, but they are done. My Little Women are finished. And aren't they adorable? They're so bitty. I stitched them 1/2 on 36 count. This is Tin Roof linen by Weeks Dye Works. I don't love Weeks Dye Works linen. It is very floppy and loosely woven, but I have found that the higher counts are much better than the lower counts. So 36 count is much better than say 28 or even 32 because it's just by the nature of the fact that it's a smaller count fabric, the threads are closer together, and so the weave does not look as open. So bear that in mind. This is in the color Tin Roof, and they're finished. So there is Meg, whose dress is probably my favorite. I think her dress is my favorite. And then we have Jo, and we have Beth, and then we have Amy. And so they are done. I don't know what I'm going to do with these yet. I would like to get them framed in a small, long, thin frame, but I only have boys. I am having my third son. And not that they can't appreciate good literature like Little Women. I don't know that they will particularly want to have Little Women hanging up in their room or in the playroom. And so I don't know where I'm going to hang these. These girls may live in my craft room with me for the rest of their lives because I may never have a girl. But I love them, and they were really fun to stitch. I stitched them 1/2, like I said, on the 36 count with DMC. I wasn't 100% thrilled with the coverage with one thread of DMC. It's very nitpicky of me, but particularly on Amy, who's wearing a very light colored dress. The coverage is not great, and you can see more of the fabric through it than I would have liked. But 2 strands of DMC over 36 count on this linen was way too bulky. So keep that in mind. If I had to do it again, I think I would have gone down to a 32 count linen so that I could stitch 2/2. And that probably would have made me just a little bit happier with the coverage. But honestly, it's very nitpicky. I think they look, generally speaking, they look fine. No one will ever have that thought looking at my piece other than myself. But that is my experience on that particular kind of linen. On the 36 count Weeks Dye Works Tin Roof linen, 1/2 just did not give me the coverage that I was hoping for with DMC. So those are all my big finishes. The rest of the finishes for this year were parts of larger projects, like I said. So like Little Sheep Virtues, were finishes, but that big project is not done yet. My Lizzie Kate Less is More project, which I'm going to show you because I've been working on that one. That's another one where I'm counting a finish, even though the whole big project isn't done because there were separate charts. And then I also am counting the finishes, like I mentioned, of my Country Cottage Needleworks Cottages of the Month, January and February. And then my Little House Needleworks border and west coast of my Sea to Shining Sea project with the Classic Colorworks Belsois Silks. I am counting the border and the first chart as finishes as well because they were done, and they're all done in separate charts. They each have their own separate chart, even though it's one big project. Whatever. You guys know what I mean. Those are all my finishes. Yay! 2017 was a good stitchy year. I got a lot done, started a lot, but also finished a lot. And I'm starting 2018 with the exact same number of WIPs that I started this year with. So, didn't reduce my pile, but it also didn't grow substantially. So that's a good thing. WIPs, what have I been working on? Like I said, I was Christmased out, couldn't do any more Christmas. So I pulled out some other projects, and I've really only been working on 2. The first one is my Lizzie Kate Less is More, and I finished. I am stitching them all on one piece like this, and I had before, I pulled this back out, I had the top little green border and the first 2 done, which is the first chart. And so I started Wine Less and Breathe More, and I got Wine Less almost done. You can see I just have to finish that pink tulip with tons of thread hanging off of it. And so that is where I am. So Halfway done with another one of these charts. I love stitching on this. I love Lizzie Kate's. This is stitched in all Weeks Dye Works and Gentle Art sampler threads. So you can see there's some beautiful over dyed. It's really pretty and it's fun to stitch on. I like the colors a lot. My needle minder is Penny Hugging Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. I'm like, what is that? Couldn't tell for a second. So that's the first thing I've worked on. And then the only other WIP I've worked on since I've been busy finishing a bunch of projects is my Little Sheep Virtues. Last time I worked on this, I had the top row done, and I am stitching these all on one piece, which I cannot show you the picture because it's on my iPad, which I'm filming with. But you've probably seen it before. It's arranged so that there's 5 Little Sheep Virtues on the top, 2 in the middle row on either side of a Country Cottage Needleworks chart, which you will see in a second, and then 5 on the bottom. And it looks really cute. It's very, very sweet. So last time you saw this, I had the top 5 done. I have since, sorry, it's very wrinkly because it just came out of my Q-snap. So I had all of those done. And I went ahead and finished Simplicity, which is the June chart, or the 6th chart. I don't know if they're technically monthly, but that's the 6th chart. And I've started the center one, which is, like I mentioned, it's a Country Cottage Needleworks chart called Sheep in the Meadow. Looks like this. And I'm changing the colors of the flowers just a little bit. You do have to alter this chart a little bit to make it fit in that space with all of the Little House Needleworks charts. There is a group that I will link in the description below on Facebook where they are doing a big old stitch along of this, and some people have already finished it, where you can get the arrangement chart. They do not give you the charts of, obviously, the patterns because that would be illegal, but one of the admins has very generously gone through and shown you how to arrange the charts and how to change this chart so that it fits. So you don't have to do a whole lot of guesswork yourself. And that is where I got my inspiration. I am doing all of the flowers in purples and yellows because I thought they looked cheery. And that is where we are on my Little Sheep Virtues. Loving this. I can't wait. I've really, strangely enough, enjoyed all of this mindless stitching of this. This is Weeks Dye Works Scuppernong, which is the color of the grass, and everything else is stitched in DMC. I'm only using the over dyed for the grass because it gives such a lovely look, and I think that's what is recommended. And I'm stitching it vertically so that it looks more like grass. And I thought I would hate it, all of this mindless filling in, and I'm not. I'm actually finding it really relaxing. So I'm enjoying that a lot. And so this center Sheep in the Meadow chart will extend all the way over to here. And then there will be one more Little Sheep Virtue on the other side of it. And then there will be the bottom 5 to finish. So that is my Little Sheep Virtues with my Harry Potter Hogwarts Crest needle minder. And that's what I've been working on. All of those finishes and then those 2 whips. That has been my stitching. We're at 33 minutes. That's not terrible considering that this is like my big, huge year in review. Okay, let's talk a little bit about next year. As a review, I had 2 main goals for this year that's coming to an end. In 2017, my first goal was that I wanted to work on all of my whips, meaning I wanted to put stitches into all 14 of my works in progress. Whether or not I finished them. I succeeded in that, with the single exception of the Rose Garden, because rather than work on it, I decided to abandon that project. But every other whip that I had in 2017, whether or not it got finished, it got worked on. And that includes my Janlin Winter Sampler, because I went in and did a bunch of back stitching before I adopted it to Stephanie. So that was I completed that goal. I worked on every single one of my whips this year. The other goal that I had was Stitch from Stash. And this one I'm calling a sort of accomplishment. I did not participate formally in the group. I'm just not very good at doing stitch-alongs. I'm not very good at posting on Instagram regularly. I don't know what my deal is, but when it comes to sharing progress and participating in group sals and things, I'm just not very good at participating in them. I may participate in them just on my own, but I don't post. It's terrible. I need to be better. So I started out the year, I joined the group, the Stitch from Stash group, but I did not keep up with posting every month my balance. However, I did largely keep up with my balance, whether, writing it down somewhere or in my head or in my cross stitch app. I did keep track of my finishes, gave myself a monetary value associated with that finish, and then let myself do some shopping. I didn't do as much just random shopping this year. So even though I did not participate formally in Stitch from Stash, and I would never claim that I did, because I did not, I did follow the concept behind it through most of this year, and I'm actually really proud of how much I got done, and being more conscious of my purchases and all of that. So my second goal for 2017, we'll call it kind of a halfway. I did not participate formally in Stitch from Stash, but I did stitch from my stash, and I did try to keep track and use that as my limit for spending. So we'll call that one a halfway. Goals for 2018 are going to be a little bit different this year. Because this year could be sort of unpredictable for me stitching wise, my first and main goal for 2018 is to have a baby. I am having a baby in early April, most likely. That's when I'm due. Late March, early April timeframe. We don't know exactly when he will come, but that's kind of the time frame. So I have about 3 months before he comes. And as any of you with small babies, infants, children know, that is going to make my stitching time very unpredictable for the first couple of months. If he's like my first son, I will get no stitching done for at least 3 to 4 months. If he's like my second son, I'll probably be back to stitching a month after he's born. So who knows? We don't know what his personality will be like. So that is my first goal for this year. Has nothing to do with stitching. It's to have a baby and not lose my sanity with a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an infant. Not sure if I'll be able to participate in Stitch Mania for the same reason. I've done Stitch Mania the last 2 years and I've loved it, but again, who knows? That's only going to be a month or two after I have a baby. Only a month after I have a baby. Yeah, he'll be about a month old when it comes time for Stitch Mania, and I don't want to assume that I'm going to be able to do it. So we don't know. We don't know what stitching is going to look like this year. The other main goal for this year that I have, as far as my stitching is concerned, is to finish this new baby's Christmas stocking. I have started Christmas Eve fun stocking. I showed it in my last video. I haven't put any more stitches in it because I told you I was Christmased out. So that one will probably stay put away for a month or two, but then I will get it back out because that is the other goal I have, is I want to have that done and fully finished by next Christmas so that it can hang up with the rest of our family's stitched stockings. Other than that, I don't have any main goals, really. I would like to work on all my whips again like I did this year. I thought that was a good goal and it was fun. So that is sort of a goal, I guess, is to touch all of my whips again, put stitches in. There are a couple bigger projects I have that have been kind of hanging around a little too long, and I'm feeling anxious to kind of be done with them. And so that would include, my Brooks Books Advent Animals. I only have 5 left. Yeah, I only have 5 left, and that is done. They still need to be fully finished, but the stitching will be done. My Giant Harry Potter sampler, I'm easily 2/3 to 3/4 of the way done with that thing. And it's been hanging around for a few years now, so I really should finish Giant Harry Potter. But really, I'm not giving myself any ultimatums. Have a baby and finish his stocking by Christmas. Only goals I've got. I do have a lot of things I'd like to start this year. I am going to do New Year, New Start. On New Year's Day, I'm going to let myself start a new project. And for that one, I have decided to start, at long last, Plum Street Samplers Liberty's Welcome, which looks like this. It's enormous. It's huge. It's a very, very big project. Stitch count is 349 by 211. This is not a small project. I'm going to be stitching it on 40 count, 1/2 on vintage pecan butter by Lakeside Linens, using all of the NPI silks. With my birthday money, I got myself the NPI silks for this. So this is going to be my new year, new start, and I'm really excited about that. Other things I'd like to start the Early Americans by Little House Needleworks. I want to restart my Cottages of the Month. But other than that, I mean, I have lots of things I showed you in that tour of my stash video a couple videos back. I have lots of good things that are kitted up, and I'm excited to just, whenever I feel like it, pull one out and start it. Last but not least, I do have a little bit of stash. I have a little bit to show you. The first one I want to show you is not something that I normally do, but when my mom and dad were in town, my mom and I went to the antique mall near my house just to have some fun shopping and antiquing. And hold on just a moment. So sorry about that. My phone rang. It was my husband. I had to answer it. They're fine. When my parents were in town, my mom and I went to the antique mall near my house just to shop and have fun. And while I was there, I could not believe this. I found a cross-stitch piece. I saved the stitches like McKenna, like many of us do. And it is beautiful. It is beautifully stitched. It's beautifully finished. And I could not believe it was $7 at the antique mall, and my heart just like, it's so Priscilla. This is, I believe, the 1989 Prairie Schooler Santa, and someone had finished it on this corrugated metal with the little burlap hanger and this pretty little Christmas pick on the top. This is how it was sitting at the antique mall, guys. This, I couldn't believe it, and it's nicely finished. It's like screwed onto it. It's very sturdy. It looks like they stitched this on a 14 count Aida. Looks like maybe a dirty Aida by Zweigart. It's kind of the color. Beautifully stitched Prairie Schooler Santa. Beautifully finished, $7. You better believe I snatched that up and brought him home. So he is now going in with my Christmas decorations, and I got to save a stitch. Save the stitches. So you never know what you're gonna find. I mean, I've not had very good luck with finding a lot of things that I wanted to purchase. You can find a lot of cross-stitch stuff. Not all of it's really worth saving. And I hate to say that because it sounds really judgy and mean, because someone obviously spent time on it, but they're just not my taste, or they're very dated, or, you know, I just wouldn't ever want to have them in my house. Are you kidding me? Yes, I want this in my house. I wish I had stitched it. And look at how cute and finished it is. It's like mounted on something. I can't really tell. It's mounted on some sort of little canvas, and then on this beautiful piece of corrugated metal. I just think this is adorable. So that was my first part of my haul, is I saved a stitch from the antique mall with my mom. She was laughing at me about how excited I got that I found that. She's like, what's the big deal? I'm like, it's a Prairie Schooler Santa. What does that mean? You understand. Next thing that I purchased, this was a purchase off of Stash Unload, and a lady in Canada was selling some things that, with the current conversion rate of Canadian dollars to US dollars, ended up being a very, very, very good deal. Even with the shipping from Canada, ended up being very inexpensive. The reason I first checked it out is she was selling 2 of the Mill Hill Santas that I didn't have yet. These are the medieval Santas from a couple years ago, from 2006. Is the year these came out. Medieval Santas, we have Canterbury Santa, and we have Saxony Santa. So I don't have the third one, which is Avignon Santa. Avignon. I can't say it, it's a French word. I don't have that one, which is this guy in the red. But I do have the other two now from that year. And she was selling them for $5 Canadian, which worked out to less than $5 US. And you guys know I have a goal to never spend more than $5 on these kits. Even with the shipping, they worked out to be less than $5 a piece. So, snatched those up. And then she was also selling some linen. And so I did grab a couple pieces of, this is all Zweigart linen, and it's all 28 count. They're all fat quarters. And again, with the conversion from Canadian to US dollars, were a very good deal. So I got another piece of blue spruce. This is the color that I'm stitching my Prairie Schooler Santas on. This dye lot actually looks just a hair darker than the dye lot I have. But yeah, a fat quarter of 28 count blue spruce linen, 15 Canadian for a fat quarter, which I thought was pretty good deal. This one is Rue Green, which is going to show up more of a gray. It's a very subtle green. It's not green. It's more of a gray green, kind of a misty gray green. Also a 28 count, also a fat quarter. And then the last one was also a 28 count, also a fat quarter in Confederate gray. So found some of my beloved Zweigart linen, which I love. Pretty much the only thing I stitch on is Zweigart. I will stitch on other things if I have them, but it's my preferred fabric. And those were colors that I didn't currently have in my stash. The Rue Green and the Confederate Gray look very similar. You can kind of see this is the gray and this is the green. The gray, they look almost the same in this lighting. The gray is just a hair lighter and the green has a titch more bluey green in it. But they are very, very similar. Both beautiful neutrals. Definitely will find something to stitch on them easily. Sorry, I looked at the screen again. This is hard. So that was really all I made as far as purchases. The last thing I want to share with you is something that I decided to do a couple months ago, and I didn't want to talk about it until I had a chance to really kind of review it and see how I felt about it. And that is that I signed up for my very first subscription, monthly subscription, for Threads. These are not commonly shown on FlossTube, although I know that a lot of people receive them. I know the Primitive Stitcher, she gets these threads. These are the Victorian Motto Sampler Shop threads. She has an eBay store, and you can purchase thread sets or even individual skeins of thread that she overdyes herself on her eBay store. She also has a floss club and a linen club, P.S., where you select whether you want the regular floss club or the primitive color floss club, and then you can choose whether you want 6 skeins a month or 12 skeins a month. And then she also has a linen club where you can sign up for the cut and the count linen that you want, and she dyes it and you receive it every month. She did just announce a couple months ago that she is planning to continue the Floss of the Month Club through 2018. So if this is something you're interested in, I would highly recommend giving her a look, because her threads, are you ready? You're gonna drool. I feel sort of guilty showing these to you. I don't want you to spend all your money, but her threads are glorious. These are the ones I have so far. And I've been collecting for about 3 months now. I belong to her regular floss club, not the primitive, although the primitives are beautiful and I kind of want both, but you know, we've got to have a boundary somewhere. Oh, look at this pink. Look at how pretty the overdye is on that. This doesn't have a name. Oh, yes, it does. It's called Sweet Pea. Anyway, her threads are beautiful. She overdyes them herself. She uses DMC as the base, so they stitch very nicely. I would say they're comparable to a Gentle Arts sampler thread. They're a little bit thicker than Weeks Dye Works. Weeks Dye Works tends to be just a hair thinner than some of the other overdyed cottons. I would say these are more like gassed threads in their quality and their thickness, and her colors are gorgeous. One thing I will say is that if you are a fan of heavily and strongly variegated threads, she is not for you. She specializes in very subtle variegation. So you can see there is variegation in this green, but it is subtle and light. It is not heavily variegated. So I would not compare her to Color and Cotton or some of the other overdyers out there who tend to do a more strongly variegated look, which a lot of people love. I'm not saying anything bad against those threads. I know they're beautiful. She is much more subtle. In her, I love this green. This was part of the Christmas or the December Floss of the Month Club one. This green is just, oh, it's so beautiful. Anyway, yeah, her overdye threads, her overdyed threads are much more subtly done. So bear that in mind. If you like strong variegation, you will probably be disappointed in these. You won't feel like there's enough variegation in a lot of them. I think these are perfect. Nell, who doesn't love a lot of strong variegation in her threads or her fabrics, I love these. I am absolutely obsessed. I mean, could you die? Look at how beautiful they are. The other reason they are great is her threads are extremely economical. Each one of her skeins, it doesn't say on here, I don't think it says on her. They're all just on a ring, and I have to find a way to store these. This is called Fern Frond. There you go, Fern Frond. She gives a DMC conversion where possible. Some of them don't have a good DMC conversion, but if they do, she gives one. So this is 3012 is her DMC conversion. Her skeins are 20 yards, okay? A skein of DMC is like 8.7 yards or something, so it's just under 10 yards, so it's, you know, a little less than half of this. A regular skein of Weeks Dye Works or Gentle Arts or Classic Colorworks is usually 5 yards. You can get them in the 10-yard skeins, but usually they come in a 5-yard. And her skeins are like $275 when you buy them individually. They are about the same price, a little more, like a couple cents more, maybe a quarter more, but generally speaking, they are very close in price to a 5-yard skein of those other dyers, the big three, we'll call them. So you get 4 times as much thread for just a couple cents more. Does that make sense? They're very economically priced. Her thread colors and choices are absolutely beautiful. Look at that blue. Oh. Her colors are gorgeous. 20 yards a skein, you just can't beat that. And so I will continue with my floss subscription to Victorian Motto Sampler Shop. Like I said, you can choose whether you want the primitive or you want the regular. You can choose whether you want 6 or 12 a month. And I highly recommend you check her out. She mostly just works on eBay and through her blog. She doesn't have an Etsy store. She doesn't have a Facebook group. She's kind of a little more old school in how she runs things. To sign up, I just sent her an email, said I'd like to sign up. She said, wonderful, just let me know what email you want me to PayPal invoice you every month. And every month I get an invoice, I pay it, and I get the threads like 2 days later. She's very quick on shipping. These were a bunch of the colors for Christmas for the December club this month, or this year. And look at these beautiful reds and greens and golds and blues. And she does a wonderful job. Her name is Nancy. She's also extremely generous and holds giveaways like every month for a free 12-pack of threads from her eBay store, a free piece of linen. I mean, she's very, very generous. So I highly recommend you follow her blog regardless of whether or not you choose to sign up for her threads. She's generous, she's wonderful, she does a wonderful job, and I highly recommend these. I will continue to do her floss subscription for maybe 6 more months. I don't know, because at that point I feel like I'll have way more thread than I'll know what to do with. But I plan to use these in place of a lot of those big three, Gast or Weeks Dye Works or Classic Colorworks. I have a lot of charts that are kitted up with fabric from Little House Needleworks or Country Cottage Needleworks, or, you know, some of those designers that require a lot of over-dyed cottons that I don't own. And so my plan is, rather than going out and buying them, is I'm gonna use my Victorian Motto threads. I can't say enough good things. She always throws in a little free gift every month. Some months it's a free skein of thread that she'll just include for fun. For December, she included these adorable vintage Victorian postcards, which are just absolutely beautiful. So there's two of that one. And then the little kids. These are gorgeous, and I want to send them to, I don't even know who. Someone very special, maybe other stitchers. But she always throws in a little free gift. She's wonderful. Can't say enough nice things about Nancy and her beautiful threads. So if you're looking for a floss subscription, I know that Color and Cotton does a floss subscription, and I've heard wonderful things. I don't have any of her threads, but I know people speak very highly of her. I know Trisha at 3L Threads is doing floss subscriptions for next year. I believe that it may be closed already. But if you're, and she does the floss subscriptions for the big three, for Gast, for Weeks Dye Works, and for Classic Colorworks. If you email her, she may be able to get you in, but I don't know. I think she closed it already. Sorry, Trisha. Anyway, if you're looking for a floss subscription, consider Victorian Motto sampler threads. If you like subtle variegation, kind of a subtle over dye, nothing crazy, but beautiful, beautiful, rich, vibrant colors and a very economical way to buy over dyes, give Nancy's threads a try. I'm really happy with them. I've got to figure out how to store them. The skeins are so big, 20 yards of thread, I can't put them on bobbins. I bobbinate everything, but there's too much thread here to put on a single bobbin. So I may have to do a Vana style where I hang them up in a bin, like from rings. And since they're, you know, they're not used in a lot of designers projects, I will probably hang them up by color family. So if I know I need a red for a certain project, I can pull out my reds and pick the right one. I don't know how I'm going to store these right now. They're just on a ring because I didn't know what else to do with them. But there's too much thread to bobbinate. Isn't that a wonderful problem to have? Anyway, that's enough about those. That's all I have, guys. I do have some Christmas stash that is coming. I got some gift certificates to 123 Stitch, and I bought myself a Christmas present that will be coming hopefully this week or next week, so I'll probably show those in next video. Sorry this one's so long, but thanks for hanging out with me for my year in review. I hope you are all healthy and well. I hope you are happily stitching your way through to the new year. I love this community. I love how supportive we all are of one another, how kind we all are. I got Christmas cards and gifts from people through FlossTube that I just am so touched that they thought of me and went to the effort to send me something for Christmas. I mean, this is just the greatest group ever, and you all know that because you're all part of it. So thanks so much for watching. Happy New Year to you. We're only a couple days away, so I hope that you have a wonderful and safe and fun Happy New Year's celebration, and I will see you all in 2018. All right? Take care, everyone, and I'll see ya. Bye.